Hi everybody and welcome to another week of family meals at the Family SeeSaw. So it's Thursday evening and tonight we're having chicken cacciatore. It's sometimes called chicken cacciatore depending on how you like to pronounce your Italian words. But it's an Italian dish and it's really homey comfort, nice winter food. If you've never tried this is a good way to try something other than like spaghetti bolognese or carbonara or lasagna, that sort of thing. So it's more of a traditional kind of stew type of dish. Do still serve it with pasta, although sometimes I do it with polenta and sometimes even with mashed potatoes, depending on what we've got around. So to start off with, you just heat a little bit of olive oil in the pan, and you want to take some bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, put a little bit of salt and pepper on them, season them up a bit, and then put them skin side down to get nice and brown and starting to crisp. Turn them over about another 5 minutes. You might, depending on how many thighs you're cooking, you might need to do that in a couple of batches. But you want to do it in a nice big pot. So you can see I've got the big kind of Dutch oven type of pot to use tonight. Once that's done, take the chicken out of the pan, just set it to the side, and then in the juices in the pan you want to put chopped onion and sliced mushrooms. Again, I will probably use most of this tub of mushrooms because they really add a nice extra layer of kind of meatiness to the dish, but just as much as you like. Once they've started to soften, so kind of released a bit of the moisture and softened up a bit, you add some chopped garlic. Again, to taste, I probably will add 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, and about a half a teaspoon for us of crushed chilies. Again, you could use less, more, or none at all, depending on your tastes. Give that only about 30 seconds, otherwise the chilies and the garlic will start to burn. So you just kind of give that about 30 seconds to come together. And then you want to stir in a couple of tablespoons of flour, as if you were making any other kind of roux sauce with a flour base. Just stir it in, cook it for about a minute, and then you add everything else. Just keep stirring as you add it. So a cup of white wine. I always just keep a bottle of white and a bottle of red in the kitchen. Same wines as we would drink. So I don't buy cooking wines or anything like that. It's just normal everyday wine. If I see a good deal on some wine, I will buy a couple of bottles just to keep for cooking. A can of chopped tomatoes, a couple of squeezes of tomato puree, 2 or 3 bay leaves, depending on the size of the bay leaves. Some thyme, again, you could use fresh, but I will use dried this evening, and some oregano, so half a teaspoon or so of each of those. A chopped red pepper. Definitely would use a red one for this, although you could really use whatever you like. And then the secret ingredient is, so I've got this block of Parmesan, which we use for grating over pasta dishes. And you can see the top here, the rind part is kind of darker, and you don't usually eat that part. I'm going to cut that off and drop that rind into the pot with the chicken, with the vegetables. It's a little trick I learned from an Italian friend, and it absolutely adds some delicious flavour into the dish. Once that's all kind of bubbling together, go back to your chicken, which is nicely browned. You can take the skin off at this point if you want to, and drop it back into the pan, pushing it down so it's kind of covered under the vegetable layer. Bring it up to a boil, put a lid on it, simmer it, kind of a gentle simmer for about 40 or 45 minutes. It's really hearty, it's really delicious, really great kind of Italian comfort food, and adds a bit of a mix to your Italian repertoire on your menu, on top of the traditional pasta dishes that you probably already make. So I will come back when it's all put together and show you the finished product. So there's our finished cacciatore. You can see in there all the pieces of chicken, thigh, and also the chopped vegetables that we put in with it as well, and that lovely rich delicious sauce. I do need to fish around in there and find the rest of the Parmesan rind, which I will remove, and there's a couple of bay leaves in there as well, which I'll try to take out before we serve it. But really looking forward to this. It's a winter's evening, it's the middle of December, or early December I guess, I'm really looking forward to a big plate of that in a moment. We're going to serve it with, I just cooked up some tagliatelle noodles, so we're going to serve it with tagliatelle. But as I said before, you could do spaghetti, any other shape of pasta, polenta, mashed potatoes, jacket potatoes even, whatever you've got as a side dish would go with this particular dish. So that's it for today. We're going to go and tuck in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hi everybody, so it's Friday evening, the end of another busy week, and tonight we're having baked chicken, but I always put a little topping on chicken, because just plain, unless it's roast chicken, just plain baked chicken breasts are a bit boring really, so we make a little topping to put on ours, which just adds a bit of extra flavour and keeps them nice and juicy. So this is a pack of the frozen chicken breasts. Now I took them out of the freezer this morning, so they're not fully defrosted, but they are partially defrosted. Now they can be cooked from frozen, so that's absolutely fine, but I find that when they're slightly defrosted I can put the topping on a little better than when it's just ice. So that's the reason for partially defrosting them, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered. And on top of that I'm going to make a little topping with some Greek yogurt. I won't use that whole pot, I'll probably use about a third of that. Some grated Parmesan. Again, I'm going to use about this much Parmesan, and that's these are my measuring cups from my time in the States, so that's about a half a cup measuring cup there. And then for seasoning I'm going to put a bit of seasoning salt, we use this for a lot of things, a little bit of garlic granules and a shake or two of black pepper. Combine that all together, spread it over the top of the chicken, and then as this is still partially frozen I'll bake it for about 40 to 45 minutes at 190 degrees, and it'll be moist, tender, really flavourful. We're going to have it with new potatoes and some vegetables this evening, so I'll be back later to show you how it looks. Hi everybody, so here is the finished chicken. As you can see, it's just kind of started to brown on the top where the Parmesan-y topping was. We've got it with buttered baby potatoes and some steamed vegetables, so that's mine and that is Caleb's. And then we've still got some extra chicken for Tony to make his plate up over on the baking tray. I'll actually show you because there shows how. So because they were partially frozen chicken breasts, there's quite a lot of juices came out. If you were using fresh, they wouldn't. Caleb's burned his mouth, I think, on trying to steal a potato out of the saucepan. Did that burn? Was it too hot? It was a piece of cauliflower. It was really hot. You don't take things out of hot pans, do you? Not a good idea. Get a drink. So, yeah, there's the rest of the chicken there, just to for Tony to make up his plate. Hi everybody, so it's Saturday evening and I'm getting ready to make dinner, which is going to be a gammon, potato and cheese bake tonight. So I'm going to cut the potatoes up into some small chunks and boil them for about 15 minutes until they start to soften, but not so they're falling apart, so they've still got the shape. While that's doing, I'm going to shred up some cabbage and also going to blanch that off for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to chop up this gammon joint into small chunks, and I'm just going to cook that off in a skillet with a little bit of oil, just for about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, just until it starts to kind of cook through and go a little brown. While all that's happening, I'm also going to make a white sauce, so some butter, some flour, and then a combination of milk and some chicken stock to make a nice thick sauce. When it's cooked through, I will add in a little bit of mustard and some salt and pepper as needed to season. Then combine all of that together into a casserole dish, and I'll layer over the top some of this Jarlsberg cheese. You can use any cheese you like really, but I think for this kind of dish a kind of Swiss style cheese is the best. So this is a Swiss cheese, and that will go over the top. Pop it all in the oven for about 20 minutes and we'll be back to show you how it looks. So there's our finished dinner. As you can see, the gammon, the cabbage, the potatoes, the cheesy sauce on the top. Caleb's got a little ketchup on the side of his. I was going to do some other vegetables with it, and I probably should, but you know what, this looks just really comforting and warming, and I've got a bit of a cold, and I'm just going to tuck in and enjoy it. I think Tony's out for the evening with some friends, so it's just me and Caleb tonight, but there is plenty left over, so if Tony's hungry when he gets in, he can have a plate. Otherwise it'll make some good leftovers for tomorrow after cold morning on the rugby pitch. So off to watch some Strictly and get tucked in. Hi everybody, so it's Sunday evening and we're having something a bit different for dinner this evening. Still quite a Sunday dinner type of thing. But when we were out for dinner a few weeks back at a restaurant, Caleb had a Yorkshire pudding wrap. It was on the main menu and it was a little bit too much for him to finish, but he really enjoyed it, said it was one of his favourite meals ever, and he asked if we could try to make it at home. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to make some basic Yorkshire pudding batter. So plain flour, a pinch of salt, an egg and some milk. I always do mine in the blender just because it whizzes it all together quite easily. And then I've got the pan ready here. I've got kind of a brownie or tray bake size pan. A little bit smaller than I would usually use, and it's got a little bit of oil in, which I will put in the oven just to heat up while the batter is resting. I'm going to make 2 lots of this, so we have 2 Yorkshire puddings. Once the Yorkshire pudding comes out, you get the rolling pin and you flatten it out, and then you cut it into half, and each half forms the basis of a wrap. And what we're going to put in ours is I'm going to heat through this roast chicken and roast beef. Chicken for Tony, beef for me and Caleb, and we'll mix that with a little bit of gravy and some peas and wrap that up inside the wraps, and then we will have roast potatoes and vegetables on the side with it. So it'll be like a Sunday dinner, but the meat will be wrapped up inside the Yorkshire. So we'll come back at the end and show you how they turn out. And so the Yorkshire pudding wraps are ready. As you can see, we just flattened out the Yorkshire, so cooked it in a pan. As soon as it came out, tipped it out onto a board, and then used our big rolling pin to flatten out the Yorkshires. Cut them in half and used half for each wrap. So you can see Caleb's got roast beef and peas in his. We've got roast potatoes and vegetables. I've got exactly the same, and then Tony's got some roast chicken that he's going to have in his. So yeah, we're quite looking forward to these now they're finished. We'll let you know how they turn out and how they taste. Hi everybody, so it's Monday evening and tonight's dinner is a sausage and pasta bake. So I'll cook up some pasta, just normally cook it on the lowest cooking time, so it's just al dente. While that's doing, I will slice up these sausages and just cook them in the pan to brown them a little bit. I don't need them to be fully cooked through, but just browned so the edges are nice and crispy. Take the sausages out of the pan, add into the pan some white onions and some garlic, so either a crushed fresh garlic or a bit of garlic granules. Once they've had a few minutes to just start to soften the onion as it's frozen onion and start to brown a little bit, I'll add in a chopped pepper. It could be any colour pepper, I just happen to have a yellow one in the fridge, but whatever colour you've got. A chopped carrot. Then cook those together for about 5 minutes until the vegetables are starting to get nice and soft. And then you're going to stir in some passata, some baby plum tomatoes or cherry tomatoes, which I'll just chop in half. A couple of tablespoons of tomato puree. A splash of balsamic, which I always like to put in tomato-based dishes. And then the noise in the background is the kettle boiling because I'm also making a bit of chicken stock, so about 200 mils of chicken stock. Let that all cook together for about 15 to 20 minutes to let the vegetable flavours develop. And then stir back in your sliced sausages and a can of beans. I'm going to use baked beans tonight. You could use mixed beans, kidney beans, cannellini beans, whatever you've got really, to add into the dish. Mix that all together with the pasta, the cooked pasta, put it into a baking dish. On the top of that I'm going to put some chunks of mozzarella, so that's just a mozzarella ball which I'll break into chunks, and then grate on some parmesan to the top. Put it in the oven for about half an hour, 200 degrees, just to let everything heat through together and let the cheese get melty on the top, and we'll come back and show you how it looks. So there is our finished sausage and bean vegetable pasta bake. So you can see the pasta, the tomatoey sauce, you can see the beans in there and the chunks of sausage, and then it's got the mozzarella and parmesan over the top. So looking forward to this for our Monday evening tea. Hi everybody, so it's Tuesday evening and we've got Monterey chicken enchiladas tonight. So that's the finished product. Bit like regular enchiladas, except you chop up your chicken, cooked chicken, just heat it through in a pan, add some diced tomatoes, some barbecue sauce, And you can add vegetables. I haven't added vegetables because Caleb is eating with us tonight and he doesn't like vegetables mixed in with things. And then add that mixture into tortillas, and then you just thin down a bit more barbecue sauce with some water to make it more of a runny sauce. Add in the rest of the chopped tomatoes, pour that over the top, sprinkle with some cheese, and about 20 minutes in the oven. So a take on enchiladas that uses barbecue sauce instead of the kind of taco enchilada sauce that you typically use. Hi everybody, so it's Wednesday evening and we've got chicken schnitzels tonight. So use this sort of basic recipe for the base of a number of dishes. I didn't flatten them quite as much as usual tonight, but basically take some chicken breast, put it between some 2 layers of greaseproof, and I whack it with, I've got a cast iron small skillet, and I whack it with that to flatten it out. Then dip it in some seasoned flour. Tonight I'd seasoned the flour with a bit of cayenne pepper and a bit of nutmeg. Then dip it in a wash of a beaten egg with a little bit of milk beaten in with it, and then dip it into breadcrumbs. This week I've used panko breadcrumbs because it gives you that crispier texture, and then in the panko breadcrumbs I put some garlic granules and some dried parsley. Then I put it in the pan for 2 to 3 minutes each side until it starts to brown. Pop it on the baking tray into the oven for about another 15 to 20 minutes depending on the thickness of the chicken, just to cook all the way through. With that we've got some little buttered new potatoes, and there's some salad as well. So that's our Wednesday night dinner. We hope you've enjoyed another week of meals at the Family SeeSaw, and we'll see you next week.